Counselor Winograd, you are all set.
All right, thank you very much. I'll open the Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Subcommittee dealing with our budget items tonight. Looks like we've got a nice full house here today, missing the small room, but we do seem to fit more people in when we go online. We've got our mayor and deputy mayor on. We have the rest of the council as well. Carol Anderson from the committee, Alberto Cortez, Tiffany McGinnis, Deb Poland. I have heard from Mark, text me that he would not be able to make it tonight. That's everyone. Have not heard from Councilwoman Fay. We also, looks like we have all the staff that we need for tonight. So I'll turn it over to Town Manager Ledwith to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we're pleased to be here tonight to present both the plant and facility services budget as well as our public works budget. Between both departments, they manage over, as we know, 2.4 square feet, I should say, 2.4 million square feet of buildings between the town and the schools, as well as over 217 miles of roads, 300 miles of sidewalks, 170 acres of parks and playgrounds. And then we throw waste management and recycling in there, and our parking lot fund and cemetery fund. And both of our directors, as well as their respective teams, do an outstanding job of managing all of this infrastructure through good weather and through bad weather. So our plant facilities budget will be presented by Bob Palmer and then John Phillips. And John has two key team members with him tonight. He has Brooke Nelson, who's our operations manager, as well as Todd Matt, who will be here to help John with his presentation of the Public Works budget. So we also have our finance team led by Peter Privatera, as well as team members Lisa Newton and Patty Lewis on hand as well. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I will turn things over to Bob Palmer, who will begin a presentation on the plant facilities budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Good to see everybody. Bob Palmer, Director of Plant and Facility Services. So I'll start with our operations budget. So I do have two different divisions. I have operations, and then I also have capital projects. So really, in both budget scenarios, it's very minimal changes to the operating budget. So we're striving to continue to provide very good service. As we come out of the pandemic, it looks like we're finally getting to the end of that. So we're glad to see that behind us in the rearview mirror and moving forward. We've been focusing again in the last year on staff retention, especially on part-time staff. We've been doing very well. We've also been very fortunate in having been able to fill a couple of full-time positions over the last few years to help with our maintenance operations. So we're doing very well in that department. So I'm going to dive into some of the budget numbers for you. So if you go to page 12-3, which is the facilities division operating budget. Again, very few changes. We are seeing a slight increase in temporary payroll, and that's based on merit increases and also the fact that the minimum wage will be going up on July 1st for the last time in the foreseeable future, at least. Now it'll be $15 an hour. In our contracts with our part-time employees, they have a differential between the minimum wage and their bottom wage. So anytime the minimum wage goes up, they get a corresponding increase in their wages. So that's reflective of that. I'm very happy to say that we are actually going to reduce our overtime budget this year, and there's a couple of different reasons for that. Some of that is the fact that we've been able to hire additional full-time staff so that we can cover outages and get the work done, so we don't need quite as much. We also haven't seen as much events occurring in the town hall and in some of our other locations that required us to support those events in the past. And the events are different. So they're not quite as many of them, and there's not quite elaborate as they used to be. So the support need is not really there anymore. So I think if you've been to any of our prior meetings, you've heard me talk about contractual services and how increased costs have been going. And everything that we do, the inflation is still going on, and for the past year we've been seeing that. So I have requested a 12% increase in that line item. It's also reflective of the fact I do have a plumbing position, full-time plumber position, that is going to remain unfunded in this fiscal year, and we're going to pay for contractual services in order to plumbing to do under contractual services. So utilities is going up about 15%. As we're all well aware, the cost of utilities over the last year has risen dramatically. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the utility services fund, but we're actually in a very good spot as far as procurement. And nice dog, Lisa. And some of that is just a reflective of the utilizing the fund balance. Some of that increases is reflective of that. Most of our increases have been associated with natural gas. We're also seeing, again, inflation is impacting our building maintenance account. Those are the goods that we buy to help support those, the all-important bathroom supplies. So those have been rising steadily throughout the last year. So again, we're seeing an increase in that area. So those are some of the highlights of the maintenance operation facilities division. So moving on to page 12-6, capital projects management division, which is a very small division. And it's really just personnel. So I have a capital projects manager, and I also have an administrative assistant there. So our administrative assistant, who was with the town for 36 years, retired this past December. She's been replaced with somebody new. So we're seeing a little bit of savings there. And the fact that she has a lower salary. So that's reflective of the reduction there. So any general questions on those two operating budgets before I move into the utility services fund? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
To see if you have any questions, and then if not, I'll take it by hands for anybody else. I don't see any. Actually, I do have one question there for you. Rental for the spaces, where does that come in for revenue? Which budget does that appear in?
Oh, that appears in for the town hall auditorium. That's through Leisure Services.
Okay.
They run and operate the town hall auditorium. We just provide support services for that. They do make a contribution to my operating budget to help cover the overtime there, but it's past years when we were pre-pandemic, it wasn't 100% of the cost, but lately it's been more than adequate. So
okay,
so
very good, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I don't see any other questions. You can move on to the capital.
Okay, going to the utility services fund, which is on page 12-8. So utility services fund is a fund that was set up 15 plus years ago with some monies that we received from Eversource because they overcharged the town for street lighting. And the purpose of the fund is to smooth out the losses and gains regarding utilities. So as you know, estimating utilities is well, we do very well. Catherine DeVinny, who's our energy specialist, is fantastic at this, and she really puts a lot of time and effort into this. And we do a lot of tracking through a third-party vendor that takes our bills and tracks all that information and gives us very good information. So, but as in this past year, unexpectedly, when we budget at this time in April and May, we really didn't find out until late summer, early fall that natural gas prices were going to soar because of problems with Ukraine and Russia, and also China coming back online and ramping up production again is increasing the utilization of natural gas. So natural gas powers both a lot of our heating, but also our electricity here in Connecticut is mostly natural gas. There is some nuclear and then some other types of sources, but a lot of it is natural gas focused. So when world events like that occur, it impacts our natural gas prices, which affects our heating and our electricity. So for electricity, we're currently locked in at a very, very favorable rate of 7.19 cents per kilowatt hour. If you're following that at all in Connecticut, the current offer, standard offer from Eversource is 24.1 cents. Some of the third-party vendors currently are offering in about 10 or 11 cents right now. So it's a very favorable rate. We're locked in through December of 24. In the next 6 months, we'll begin the process to take a look at, again, procuring a long-term contract that's very favorable to the town. So some of the, we're not so, the other side of that is the delivery side from Eversource, and we're not able to lock that in. So we're just like everybody else in the state, or who's an Eversource customer, we're subject to the changes that are implemented every 6 months and the upcharges that occur there. So that's what we were seeing, a little bit of a difference in what we had predicted for utility costs versus our actuals. So the other problem was, again, the heating. That's really where we saw the increase this year, was the natural gas costs, especially in the early winter, were very high. They've steadily come down. They've really moderated coming into March and April at this point. So we're seeing a good favorable there. Plus we had a very, as you're all aware, very extreme mild winter temperature wise. So that really helped us out too. So if you look at the chart on page 12.8, we had estimated a utility budget cost between the board and the town of about $4.7 million. We think that's going to come in just below 5.1%, which is a difference of $371,000. So we're a little bit short this year on our estimate. Again, we at one point we thought it was going to be much higher than that, almost triple that. But again, with natural gas prices moderating through the winter and then reduced usage because of the warmer weather, that number has come down. It probably will come down a little bit more as we get the March and April bills into. We think that we probably are going to be a little bit better. So what that means is that we will make up that difference with the fund balance. So the beginning fund balance is down below in the beginning balance total. So we'll utilize some of the fund balance from this year and spread that cost out over 2 years, the deficit over 2 years. It also means that we won't be able to utilize as much of the fund balance in our allocations of utilities for next year. So in estimating our utilities for next year, we're estimating it'll be about $5.3 million. Again, it's very subject to change. Our usage is up quite a bit over the last, since we've come back from the pandemic. And that's really because of the increased ventilation. We're running the schools much longer hours than we used to, and we're running the town buildings much longer hours too, in an effort to help vent the buildings more. And we also adjusted our systems to maximum fresh air. So we're going to look for some guidance from the health people from the state and local health department about maybe being able to trim that back over the next 6 months to a year as COVID kind of subsides a little bit here. But we'll wait for the guidance on that and follow the best practices. But we're hoping to reduce the operating hours and also to scale back the amount of fresh air that we get so that we can reduce our usage there a little bit more and get back to where we were before. So we still continue to do energy efficiency projects wherever we can. So as we're doing different projects, we'll look for opportunities to add new controls, replace older equipment with newer equipment, use new technology. Wherever we do roofing projects and we complete a building, then we'll come back and do a solar project on top of that in order to do that. As you know, Catherine's very energetic and very ambitious. We just started our second virtual net metering project from Torrington, so that now we have 2 of those projects. And again, it provides everything she does provides a lot of savings to us overall. So be happy to answer any questions on that before we move on to anything else for you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Again, I'll start with Carol. And Nothing there.
Nope, I
Looking,
don't have any questions. Ben, I'm
Okay.
good.
thank you. Just looking around for hands. We might be letting you off easy, Bob. We'll save them all for John.
Okay.
All right, I think that I think that was very complete. We don't have any questions on this part.
Okay. Do you want me to move into capital, or do you want to?
I think so. Rick?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chairman, Bob, why don't you move to the capital budget?
Sure. Okay, so moving onto the capital budget. So for town building improvements is the focus for this. So the major account there is the town building improvements, and it's kind of like a catch-all account for most of the town buildings. So this is where we derive funding to do most of our projects within town buildings, unless they're large scale projects, then we would create a separate account. So this is roofing replacements, this is HVAC replacements, restroom renovations, office space renovations, a variety of different types of boilers, chillers, anything like that. Just looking down the list. So those are the types of things that we've been looking at there. So it's usually it's approaching almost $2 million a year at this point. We have,
If you can direct us to the page.
oh, sorry, page 3-1 in your capital book.
It's page 17-21 in the regular budget book too, Bob.
Okay. Got it. Might be easier if I use that one. All right, so 17-21, is that everybody's page that you're on?
Yeah.
Is that year one? Yes. Okay. So for this year's, so we're asking for $1.8 million. The types of projects that we're planning to do are, a lot of it's basic types of work. So a lot of it's painting, flooring, furniture, those types of improvements. For town hall, we're looking to continue to do office reconfigurations. Currently, we're working in the engineering area based on last year's budget. The use of this money this year would go towards the building department and also the planning offices. We also are looking at doing some general improvements to some of the fire stations. We have some money allocated also for the police department. We are doing quite a bit of work over at Cornerstone in the last year or two. We're replacing HVAC units. There's several large units over there. And we're basically replacing each one a year, and they're pretty expensive. They're in the $750,000 per each price range. Those, again, we're seeing long delays and really a lot of increased costs related to HVAC. So it's taking almost a year to get that stuff ordered and to get it installed. Continuing to see quite an effect there. Public Works, we're currently doing a roofing replacement there with this year's capital money. Over the next several years, we're looking to begin replacement of the rooftop units for that facility, beginning with at least one of those this year. And then we have, again, various smaller improvements throughout the majority of the town buildings. So some of the other accounts that are in there, we have the $750,000 for the fire training tower. The current tower is not structurally adequate to continue utilizing it the way it is. As you're probably familiar, we're in the middle of a study for public safety facilities, looking at the public safety headquarters, the 5 fire stations, as well as the shooting range and the fire training tower. So we're hoping for some direction from that study in the near future to help us give us a direction on what we want to do down with the fire training tower to make that a facility that's useful for them based on upon what they've had before. So There's also an account, town facilities paving. About every other year, we end up with enough, we accumulate enough funds in this account to pave town facilities. Scheduled for this summer is Woolkit Park. Would be probably later in the fall after the recreation season, or early next spring, depending on scheduling for that project. Townwide generators. This is the second year of funding for this project to install generators at some key town facilities. We have completed design for the first phase. We're currently awaiting notification about a grant opportunity from the state for the first phase of that. So we're kind of on hold and not going to bid on that at this point. And that was for generators at Fire Station 1, Town Hall, Conard, and Hall. The second phase of this would provide generators for some other buildings, including Bishop's Corner, Senior Center and Library, some of the smaller facilities as well. So, but again, we're hopeful that we're going to get that grant. We should be hearing about that pretty short in the near future. And again, we're seeing very long lead times on these types of items, up to a year, most likely. So when we go to bid on this, it's going to take us at least a year to get them installed in these facilities as we go forward. I'm going to leave the fueling facility to John because that is his baby. All right. Any questions on the town capital improvement projects for year one, at least? So.
I see, Deb, I see you.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the police pistol replacement? How many pistols do we expect to be able to purchase with the 100,000 that's set aside?
Yeah, I don't have any knowledge of that. Through you, Mr. Chairman, would Mr. Ledwith know that information?
I do. Through Mr. Chairman, I'll turn to Peter. He probably has the exact number, or I'd have a general number.
Thank you. No, my understanding with the chief is they were going to be able to replace all of their sidearms and replace them with the red dot system that allows, if an officer is pointing his weapon at someone, the dot, wherever the dot is, that's where the strike will be. And I think that was one of the big changes that they made from the current sidearms that they use. But my understanding was that he got such a great deal on this that he's going to be able to replace all of them.
Thank you.
I'm looking, I don't see any other questions. Carol, you didn't have any, I think. Nope.
No, Ben, I'm all set.
Okay. Nope, I don't see any. I just have one very general question on the difficulties, obviously, of supply chains and everything else this year. How confident are you in, and it's an unfair question, but how confident are you in these numbers? Like, I know we've had some overruns in other areas.
Yeah, it's hard to have any confidence in them. So as we're budgeting, you know, it's hard. So we're using the bid process to kind of figure that out as we do it. So you know, we recently just bid on the school side the Sedgwick bathroom renovations, which came in $750,000, which was a little bit less than last year. So you know, so it was good. It seemed like it was at least stable and even a little bit better than it was last year. So that, so far so good. We do have a bunch of stuff out to bid right now. So I think things have stabilized. I don't see them coming down dramatically. So inflation still is chugging ahead here. So yeah, I was listening to some market stuff this morning about employment. You know, the employment numbers are still good. So it's really keeping the economy moving ahead, and with that, inflation continues to just kind of stay with it. So I think you're still seeing lots of shortages in the trades, and you know, it's really a people resource issue for a lot of these manufacturers of equipment and that type of stuff. They're just you know, unable to get people to work and to to build the things that need to be done. So, so I think we're still trying to figure it out and see how it goes, but it seems a little bit better. You know, I'm still getting crazy lead times of a year on a lot of this stuff. So.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Peter.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out that when you approve this budget, you're approving the first 2 years of bonded projects. So I didn't know if you wanted Bob to give you a quick overview of year 2, since you're going to be authorizing that.
Yeah.
That's on page 1766, Bob, if you want to do
Yeah.
a quick overview on that.
Yeah, so very similar to year 1. It's very similar types of projects that we plan on doing. Let me put in the town building improvement. It's going to be very similar. HVAC. We're planning on some HVAC upgrades at the Noah Webster Library. More office renovations at Town Hall. I am looking to modernize the restrooms at Town Hall in that second year. So to go through, renovate those, make them truly ADA compliant, and just to improve the general condition of those. Again, more HVAC upgrades at Town Hall, some additional work at the fire stations to improve those facilities. Again, additional work at the police station. There is also an account in year 2 for police department improvements. And it's got some general descriptions in there about offices and the lab, and some other types of things. And the study that we're currently doing will help to pinpoint better some of where that money is going to be targeted. We should have that completed by the end of this calendar year, so we'll be able to program that money more directly. It does have general descriptions of what they think they need at this point, but we'll utilize this consultant and the study to help pinpoint those projects. Cornerstone, we will continue with HVAC work. The same thing at Public Works, and then again, general improvements throughout most of the town facilities. So painting, flooring, some furniture equipment, that type of thing. So let me just make sure I got everything in here. Yeah, I'm going to leave the other items to Mr. Phillips. So material solution and heavy equipment truck storage facility.
Very good.
Okay.
I do have a quick question for Bob. So
Good.
through you, just Bob, on the HVAC equipment, the upgrade and installation, typically when it is installed, about what's the time frame from beginning to end? And is there any type of disruption to staff, or when do you typically try to install that to perhaps minimize the disruption?
It really varies building to building. Sometimes we have separate systems for heating and cooling. So if that's the case, then obviously if it's a cooling unit, then we would do it over the winter time, and then when we're not utilizing it. Same thing, vice versa. If it's a heating system, boiler, we would do during the summer, that type of thing. If it's a combined unit, there's going to be some type of an interruption. Hopefully it's only a day or 2. We try to do that. I get what we call the shoulder season, so spring or fall, so that we're not in prime heating or prime cooling season in order to do that. But we'll have to see what it is. A lot of these units are just quick 1-for-1 replacements. They just come in, they take a crane, they pick it off the roof, they put a new one in, gets connected. It should be pretty much self-sufficient and operational. So a lot of them are what we call package units. Those are very quick, couple of days at max. Some of other ones are just more complicated. So they're in tight spaces, and it requires some effort and time to do that. So there could be some interruption, but there's also options. We can do temporary cooling with what we call move and cools, or window units, those types of things. So we have options and ways to keep our people comfortable. So.
Okay, through you, and a follow-up question through you, Mr. Chair. The combine units, do we have many of those installed throughout our town facilities or district?
We do. So a lot of our town buildings use a heating and cooling combination unit. Yep. So those are what we call typically, I just mentioned rooftop package units. So
Yep.
they're They're efficient, they're easy to
That's what I was
maintain,
gonna ask you.
compact.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Excellent. Anybody else? I do not see any. I think that might be it for you.
Yeah.
So we'll put it back to Rick and can introduce Public Works
Will
first.
do. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Bob, for that overview.
Thank
I
you.
will turn things through you, Mr. Chairman, over to John Phillips, and he has two key members of his leadership team on with us, I believe still. I think we have Todd Matt, Business Operations Manager, and Brooke Nelson, Operations Manager, who will be assisting John should any questions come up that he needs help with. So through you, I will turn things over to Mr. Phillips.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Tom Mander, Rick Ledwith, and through the chair, Ben. John Phillips, Director of Public Works. I am happy this year to present Public Works budget to this committee. I know we have a couple of new council members, so I will take some liberty and just kind of build how our budget is built a little bit by division, so you get a sense of the allocation of dollars and where they go for operational purposes. And then I'll walk through some of our key drivers, as well as some very critical requests that we're making for this year. But just to highlight, for this past fiscal year, we did accomplish all that we set out to on the capital improvements as far as purchasing small equipment or even heavy equipment that services our department. We got a few key highlights. Department of Public Works completed well over 9,000, almost 10,000 work orders last fiscal year, but that is an increase from previous fiscal years by 14%. A key piece of those work orders, the street maintenance division replaced or rebuilt over 250 catch basins, as well as cleaned an additional 585 catch basins, which is a DEP requirement, but it's a very big lift on the staff of our street maintenance team.
And John, just for a second, 11.1 for anyone looking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. 11.1.
line.
I'm reviewing the accomplishments. I'm now on 11.2. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Again, I'm just highlighting to just draw attention to highlight some of the features. In our waste management areas, we touched over 72,000 people on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and that's a large part thanks to the efforts and work efforts and knowledge of Catherine Brunge, our recycling coordinator. We do have a fully implemented food scrap collection program within our school system. We're very proud of that, and we get a lot of calls from other communities on how we were able to accomplish our successes there. Public Works has also started getting more involved in construction work, larger construction work, performing culvert reconstruction work from our engineering division. And we're happy to take on more and more of that work as that is a significant savings to the town as they use their capital money for those types of projects. Municipal Parking Services has been out there servicing a long list, if not every single weekend, some sort of special event that happens within the center, while still maintaining key services, replacing our kiosks and keeping things up to date. So we stay operational there. So overall, Public Works is built of 5 general fund divisions, and that's your administration. Waste management is a part of our admin division, if you would. We've got a grounds maintenance division as well as BOE grounds. We support the Board of Education grounds maintenance of their facilities. The street maintenance division, we have a fleet maintenance division that maintains over 400 pieces of equipment and apparatus. A traffic safety division, which does all our signs on all of our traffic control systems, traffic lights, street lights, pedestrian crosswalk areas, etc. And then we also have 2 important missions of Public Works of 2 enterprise funds, which is managed by Brooke Nelson, who is on this call tonight. And that's our municipal parking operation and the cemetery operation. So those 8 entities make up Public Works budget. But again, 2 of them are enterprise and not a part of the general fund. Overall, Public Works is requesting an annual budget of $13.5 million. It's basically a 4%. Is basically 4% of the overall town budget. But it's important to break that down a little further so we have a better understanding of operating versus really our fixed costs with waste management. Our total waste management budget upcoming is $5.3 million. That's about roughly 40% of our operating budget, or 1.6 of the town's budget, overall budget. So that leaves about 8.1 million of just operating money. That's less the waste management piece, or 2.5% of the overall town's budget is public works operational maintenance budget of the miles of roads that Rick highlighted, all our grounds maintenance areas, traffic safety areas, and including maintaining our rolling stock for not only public works, other town services, but police and fire as well. Major line item drivers for changes in that. Really, we're just really looking at key things outside of our payroll and other salary increases that come along that 7.1%. We are seeing increases in areas like our recycling coordinator moving her time up to 1,500 hours, which is a $15,000 increase. Our municipal solid waste collections, we expect increases there overall throughout all programs at 125,000. Our recycling collections will be increasing $102,000. Fleet maintenance, basically for just parts for an aging fleet every year, obviously, and parts become more expensive, roughly about $89,000. And then increasing our focus on our work with trees throughout town that exceeds our capabilities in-house, about an additional $20,000. The key drivers, though, I do want to focus on for this budget, and probably will generate the most questions, is Public Works is requesting new staff for this upcoming fiscal year. On the general budget side, we're seeking a grounds maintainer to address all of the growing demands of our grounds maintenance responsibilities. And in review, this is a reaction to work that we've already taken on in-house. Call it a decade's worth of creep. Since 2013, we've increased athletic build-outs by 24 different types of fields from what we normally do. And again, that's not something that happened it happened over time, not in just 1 year. So it's responding to that. But we're also responding to the increased lineal parks of the Trout Brook Trail system that is growing in popularity. The new grounds maintenance agreement that we have with DEP, again, that's associated with that linear park of the Trout Brook Trail, and maintaining the Trout Brook Trail at a higher level, where we used to probably mow it due to our flood maintenance areas once or twice a year. We'll now be out there regularly because it's a part of our trail system. And so there'll be a call for demands there. Again, just an increase overall usage of all of our athletic fields by our youth in town, as well as adult leagues, and that demand, and keeping up that demand. And obviously waste and litter patrol collections within all of our park systems. On the general fund side, also, we're also asking for a street maintainer. Again, that's to address the increased call volume that we receive, or work orders that we are receiving, both in-house internally, what we develop our work volume internally, work volume that comes from and is developed out of our engineering department, and then obviously the work volume that is developed from just our constituents, residents calling for service within our streets, our sidewalk systems, etc. And that work is obviously growing. As I expressed, it grew 14% year over year. And other driver on that is we're seeing it's becoming very difficult. Like Mr. Palmer indicated, the labor workforce is strained outside of the public works. Finding contractors to do the work that we need to assist us, whether it be supplement or even to do the work, is becoming more and more difficult and challenging, especially in the area of snowplow maintenance. We historically have to hire contractors to plow all of our routes. We only have enough employees to seat 24 plow routes, but we have 34 plow routes that need attention by a full-time plow operator. And so this is a small step, incremental step to addressing that issue. And it really just focuses really on two key issues outside the labor shortage and a CDL shortage. There's a significant shortage in CDL operators, which challenges the shortage in just the labor workforce alone. And we were very fortunate that I can say this because we're going to have 80 degrees this week. We were very fortunate to have the winter we had, where Mr. Palmer said it was good because on his operating budget for heating the buildings, because it was a warm winter. The lack of snow didn't expose us to the 6 open plow routes we had, because we did not have contractors to address those snowplow routes. So in combination of our work throughout the whole entire year, obviously snow and ice control is a mission critical component we have. And this is a step one in a strategy, start focusing on that so we can be more self-sufficient on a mission critical assignments that we have. We're also asking for additional grounds maintainer opportunities for that will come out of the cemetery fund. Again, that will be budgeted through the cemetery fund, which is an enterprise fund, so they'll have no impact on the general fund. Our strategy there is that we have a contractor that mows the 56 acres of our cemetery. Those contracts are over time have grown to a point where we can hire 2 employees in-house to not only mow the cemeteries as this contract does for us, which is only a 20-week contract, but we'll have the benefit of that employee for 52 weeks a year. So because of the cost of the contractors, we think it's a strategy that workforce will be able to still maintain the cemeteries at a high standards that we're all used to. We're actually confident we can maintain that, if not even extend that level of service with in-house staff. But the benefit of having that staff for 52 weeks over a one-time expense of 20 weeks per year is a tremendous benefit for the DPW operation. Plus, those employees will be presumably CDL operators. At least we will train them to be CDL operators, and they fit into the plans to address the deficiency in snowplow operators. So they'll fill those routes that we know will be vacant for years to come because of the labor and CDL shortages that we're experiencing in the industry. And then we're also asking for a full-time staff assistant. Again, this position will be shared between the parking and cemetery fund. It's not against the general fund. And that's, again, also through experiences that we're having through part-time staff and getting continuity between, obviously, the very sensitivity of a cemetery operation to make sure we have adequate staff there, as well as the parking operation. So there'll be a shared position there. If I can back up a little bit on the 2 general fund positions that we are seeking, the street maintainer and grounds position, while these positions are very similar in skill sets, they obviously have 2 key and specific roles. Street maintenance versus ground maintenance are 2 specific types of jobs. Where we plan to fund these 2 new positions within the current operating budgets we reduced line items such as material line items, temporary payroll line items, and contractual service line items to fund the 2 new positions. So we stayed and we were able to maintain just what we think is a minimal 5% increase overall to the general fund. We're confident that this is the right step forward going towards our workload, and we're hopeful that the council would agree and support the budget as presented. That's it in a very high level nutshell discussion. Again, all the divisions are in the books. I'm happy to go to any page and ask any question you may have on our operating budget, as complex as DPW budget is.
Great, thank you much, Peter. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Pete Privatera, Finance Director. I just wanted to add to John's presentation that when we sat down and we were talking about John's operations, and John's always been struggling with the situation where he needs extra help, but I'm always pushing back and saying, well, we need to keep the budget as low as possible. So that's when we sat down and we put our heads together. We came up with this plan that for the new positions in general fund and the new positions in the cemetery fund, you'll see a direct reduction in contractual services and part-time payroll to offset those expenses, and pretty much all the expenses, with a significant impact on the benefits as well. Because every year we sit down and we look at the cost for outside contractor services for snow plowing, for mowing, and they go up and up and up. And John is always looking for additional resources. We figured this would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We wouldn't increase the budget, but we would add to the staff, and John would have available staff in the wintertime for plowing and not find himself short when he's looking for contractors if we have a major snowstorm. So I just wanted to reiterate the logic behind those positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. And yeah, we keep on throwing more work at John and his staff, and we expect them to always do a great job, and they do. But I certainly understand the requests. Any questions, Carol?
Yes, Ben, I do have a quick question for John. Thank you for that report out, John. Quick question for you. On page, let's see, 11.5, the contractual services under Public Works Management Division, where it says the appropriation funds the participation in the CDL drivers drug and alcohol testing program through the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. Would you just elaborate on that? Is that something that's going to be required for all staff or all CDL drivers as they're coming on board and current staff?
Yes, Public Works has a long history on maintaining a drug-free work environment, and that is related to our CDL requirements. Federal mandates, you cannot have a CDL or drive a large vehicle on the road CDL rated B or A, unless you're in a drug and alcohol program. And so that's what you're talking about there. And so that does affect anybody who is a CDL holder and working for Public Works. We found very recently, and in working in cooperation with the bargaining unit, and I give the bargaining unit credit for having the same vision as I did when I approached them, is that CDLs are hard to come by with folks outside who don't have one. And our old job descriptions required you to come to work for the town with a CDL in hand. We dropped that requirement because I think there's a lot of excellent skilled employees out there that just may not have had the opportunity. It can be an obstacle if you're coming from whatever your background is, can't afford to pay for CDL driving schools. So now we're recruiting and looking for skilled employees that don't have CDLs, in addition to having it's preferred. But if you don't have it, we're committed to stand behind those new employees, the right employee, and train them up and make sure they get the proper training to achieve their CDL. But drug and alcohol testing is a federal requirement that we have to comply with.
Okay, thank you, John. And I appreciate that sort of out of the box thinking and approach for people who normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do or to purchase or to fund or finance the CDL. I
In
know
the
a couple
last
of
year, we
those.
trained 4 people to get their CDLs, and they all successfully did it through our training.
Yeah.
And I'll add that drug and alcohol that because you asked about that, it's also a requirement of our contractors, which is an additional impediment
Oh,
to
yeah.
trying to find quality contractors. Because
Right.
depending on your size of company, you may not have to have that requirement. But if you
Right.
want to work for government or the town of West Hartford,
Was
you're
Hartford.
required to be in that category of drug-free and CDL drivers.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? The only one I'd like to add on a little bit, to the unsung heroes, the fleet maintenance, and there are some increases there. If you could describe what they do and sort of why the bigger increase on that end.
Yes, Ben, thank you very much. Well, through this committee and obviously through the council last year, you supported Public Works request to add a fleet maintainer, a fleet mechanic to our payroll. And we did add that individual over the last 12 months. Again, one of our employees who we trained up to get a CDL. We hired the person without a CDL. So we do now have 7 techs working on the floor. And that's the last year's, just to recap, the driver was obviously our police and fire fleet was growing in complexity and repairs, as well as growing in number of vehicles, especially with the emergency response from fire going to medical calls and adding those vehicles. Police and fire are mission critical for us. Obviously, they're a 24/7 outfit, a year-round outfit. So it's important that we keep those cars properly preventatively maintained, as well as timely address timely repairs so that vehicle gets back on the road, especially for their frontline equipment. Really, the industry is just no different than any of you who may do some work on your own car, whether it be just from a simple filter to something more complex. We're seeing a 20% plus increase in parts across the board. We're also seeing, interesting enough, through the pandemic, a lot of part failures. Even on some of the newer equipment, we're seeing an increased part failures, and that's due to car manufacturers using different companies, maybe not using ISO companies that they've used in the past because of the pandemics and shutdowns, but they still had a high demand to get stuff out as fast as possible. And that comes back to the microchip issue that has been well talked about nationwide, if not worldwide. So we're seeing an increased repairs in that space. So that just drives our costs. We're buying more parts to make more repairs on a significant size fleet. And remember, each year that passes, a year older the fleet is.
Great. Well, if that didn't add any questions, and we can, I guess, move over to capital. Talk about some of the projects.
Okay. Overall, Public Works doesn't do much in the way of capital, although we're seeing ourselves having to reach out to capital more and more. Every year we ask for about a $600,000 request for rolling stock, and that money is primarily to purchase our largest apparatus, from snowplow trucks to maybe excavators that do the work, our skilled workers use and utilize out in the field. Again, overall, just our public works fleet, take fire and police, if you subtract them, just our public works fleet is in excess of $10 million in total value purchased brand new. So it's a very small investment to keep up with the replacement cycle of some of our vehicles. It's not ideal, but we make do with what we have. A better example is we have 24 primary snow and ice trucks, plow trucks, basically. And this money, 600,000 wouldn't even buy 2 trucks today. So we have to be strategic when we buy the trucks and spread it out. And at that cycle, that means our newest truck will be 24 plus years old before we replace it. In most standards, that's an antique by vehicle standards. But that's not uncommon. When I first became director, we were plowing snow with 35-year-old vehicles, and we've done a good job with support of council to bring that number down, but we're still significantly higher than we should be. But we work with what we have. We are requesting for a work management system. We currently use a work management system. It's called Asset Essentials. It's basically a software system that's built from what they formerly known as the Facility Dude. Town of West Hartford, our IT department and our facility department used to use the Facility Dude, and out of efficiencies and cohesion, basically trying to stay on the same page as everybody else and continuity. We joined that work management system, but IT has moved on, and so has facilities. So we're like on an island, and the system's not really centric for public works. And so we have a lot of difficulties with aligning the work management reporting and the methodology of the Asset Essentials piece to the kind of work that Public Works does. Because IT and facilities have moved on and leaving us in a very difficult spot with this vendor. We're looking to replace the work management system to a more public works centric system. It's called Asset Works, almost similar names, but it's more adaptable in our reporting. It's better features. It's more user friendly to the type of work that our workers are doing out in the field. But it's a mission critical piece that we do because it's important to keep track of our work for the whole life cycle work, from receiving the request of work and bringing it all the way to a point of completion, and then keeping that work recorded for future references, and hope maybe one day, as we really use the system properly, can start projecting our costs better in the future for better budgeting practices. We have requests for capital for skid steer. We've already purchased one coming up, so this will be move it up to from a year 2 to a year 1. It'll be a second purchase of a skid steer, which are smaller mini type of loader type machines that work very well on the street, and it's a common piece of equipment for the work that we perform out in the field. We already have this money encumbered, but $180,000 for large area mowers. Due to supply chain issues, we made a commitment to purchase against this capital improvement project. And so we hope to receive those mowers sometime later this summer, this fall, but both of those mowers have already been purchased, or the commitment to purchase. And then in year 1, we have a CNRE account, a request for miscellaneous equipment, and we really just packaged up a few things that we need. Obviously, we need a lot more than what's listed here, but we had to prioritize, and our prioritize landed on a cabin chassis for our sign truck, the body on it, and it's an apparatus on the back. There's a crane, and there's a lot of other mechanics on there that go out and perform our sign work in town. But the cabin chassis has a lot of frame rail deterioration, and it's way past its time to be replaced. A laminate roller will assist our program to produce signs, and with the coming on of Vision Zero, the timing of this purchase will be perfect. It will be very good in alignment with anything that comes out of Vision Zero, especially if we have to increase our signage, improve our signage, update our retroreflectivity on our signage. So this will be a valuable tool that will be necessary to keep up with that demand. And our sign inventory is in excess of 40,000 units throughout town, from everything from the simple no parking sign to all of our stop signs and street name signs. And then we're also purchasing an athletic laser grader. This is a piece we've been seeking for a few years now, and it's just come time to really pull the trigger and make this purchase. But with all the investments we've made in our fields over the last several years, in excess of $3 million, it's a mission critical piece for the quality of the playing surfaces that our kids play on. Our kids, our youngest, from our intramural sports or our rec leagues to our high school kids, and including our adult leagues. And so a lot of grades change when you have a lot of playing activity in our fields, and this machine will be super efficient. 1 or 2 employees can go out and operate this on our fields and keep our fields in excellent and very respectable conditions after the investments we've made in them. And other areas we have, again, Palmer highlighted, we do have money set aside for a fuel farm. Again, this is a project that we've been working on for a while, and now the money is coming up to date. As we look at Public Works Yard as a whole, we'll look to site it here on site, and then hopefully this fiscal year we'll move into the construction phase and install it before, and hopefully we can have it done, and it should be done if things go well for us, have it ready for the next winter season. This will help us in the fluctuation and the ups and downs of the fuel markets of paying fuel. If you recall, just a year ago, diesel fuel was over $6 a gallon. That did affect us. So it will help us serve better during those times of high spikes. It'll also serve us better during times of emergency. Those of you who may not have been here, but in 2011 storm, we lost power for 11 days. We had to use our West Hartford police friends to actually commandeer fuel lines to get our equipment fueled during that time of emergency. So this will correct that issue that we had then, and we'll never have that issue again because we'll be self-sufficient with a fuel farm in-house. Year 2 monies, again, it's just reoccurring money looking for our rolling stock. We did throw in a what they call a MadVac machine. It's an opportunity going off our clean energy fund. Our request, we look at opportunities to buy electric vehicles. This type of equipment is starting to advance in the EV area. And this piece will look to help us keep the trail system cleaner, some of our other sidewalk areas cleaner. Again, just another tool for the trade, maybe bike trails that come online in the years to come. So it's a proactive approach as well as a machine that we'll use in real time for activities today. And then other just minor miscellaneous public works equipment, which again would fall under the CNRE account for year 2. And then in year 2, obviously the bigger thing is our Material Solutions Center. Again, that's the continuation of development as we look at long-term, and I mean long-term solutions for waste management. The goal, not only us at the local level, but it's also at the state level, is we need to be more self-sufficient in areas of managing our own waste. That is my opinion and my recommendation. That is the best pathway to success in that space of waste management. Where right now we're not self-sufficient. We're relying on other resources. We're relying on a failing disposal system in the state of Connecticut. And there are a number of state bills right now that are being talked about, but still, even with the state bills that are being discussed and what may or may not come out of committees or be voted on for this year, there still remains to be a lot of uncertainty in the space of waste management. And so that Material Solutions Center is a concept idea that they were currently still working on and developing. But those funds will, if we can continue on this pathway, would kick in on year 2. We'll need to spend some funds to develop that site for a more comprehensive material solution officer. The key piece of that is obviously give our residents an opportunity to drop off waste they can't drop off now, stuff that are hard to get rid of, items that they don't have the opportunity to drop off now. A town of this size, with 65,000 residents that we service and the amount of waste that we collect, over 18,000 tons, it's actually we're insufficient in that space, and this will move us closer to being better served our residents, as well as better service our waste management programming in the future, as the future comes. So that's a quick snapshot of both capital and CNRE requests for the years 1 and year 2.
Great, thank you. I'll entertain questions again. Again, I'll start with Carol from the committee. And
No more questions for me, Ben. I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you, and then I'll look for hands from anybody else. I do not see any hands from those who have cameras. All right. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Rick, do you have anything else?
I do, yeah. One other item, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We wanted to provide our most recent American Rescue Plan Act funding status. So all of you have, or most of you have gotten back to me about setting up an additional finance and administration meeting for next Monday at 7 o'clock. And we wanted to get this funding status out to the council prior to that meeting in case we want to talk about our additional remaining ARPA funds. So just by way of summary, the council will remember we did receive $25 million in town funds and $12.2 million in county funds following the town council's most recent allocation of appropriating $6 million of funds to support affordable housing. We now have $4.5 million in town funds left from that $25 million, and then we have the full $12.2 million in county funds for a total of $16.8 million in remaining funds. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, you'll see $4 million in pending original projects, and we've discussed these over the last year or so, but have not formally adopted a resolution to expend these funds. So assuming all 4 million of those were appropriated for those various projects, we'd be left with $12.7 million. And those were, we originally called it a crash study, but we've changed the name since we've adopted Vision Zero. So that's what we would call Vision Zero Task Force Consultant for $150,000. Last year's budget, you'll remember that we did use ARPA to fund half of the Assistant Director of Leisure and Social Services. So we would do that formally by the end of this fiscal year. And then the center reconstruction project for LaSalle and Farmington, we had originally appropriated, at least on informally, $3.8 million towards the funding of those projects. So assuming those were still okay and we formally appropriated those as we move through the fiscal year, we would be left with $12.7 million left in ARPA funds. So, so wanted the council to have that prior to our meeting next week. Happy to answer any questions that folks may have right now, but I think we can probably dive a little deeper into potential uses of those funds next week. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I can turn it back to you for any questions that folks may have.
Great, thank you. I think you're probably right that would save that, but all right, good. Go ahead.
Can't hear you.
Can't really hear you.
Can't hear you, Deb.
It's not muted, but it was muffled.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay. I'm operating at a deficit because I don't have my book in front of me. So can you just tell me what page we're on? I'm trying to use the.
Oh, I'm sorry. We uploaded the spreadsheet on the civic clerk, Deb, Councilor Poland. So you'll see an attachment right on civic clerk that has the spreadsheet. So it wasn't in your budget book. Yeah.
All right. I'll take a look at a different time.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else looking to jump in on that one right now. Good. All right. Well, I think that it sounds like it wraps it up. We appreciate everybody's time and effort on this, and all the great work you've done to get us to the point where you can summarize in an hour. I know a whole lot more work than that went into it. So thank you all for your presentations, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We seconded and approved, and we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,